Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, listener, to episode 73 of the Ad Nauseam podcast. My name is Dr. Jeff Winkle. I'm here on a rare daylight session in the vomitorium, although it's always usually the same amount of light here in the vomitorium, no matter what time of day we're doing this.
The curtains are blackened.
The curtains are blackened, but I'm feeling a little bit more bushy-tailed, it being earlier in the day.
Somewhat bright-eyed?
Somewhat bright-eyed. Not all the way there, but...
the standard fatigue is at a lower level for me.
It's true. And so I'm ready. And listener, as always, I'm here with my good friend, Dr. David Noe. Dave, tell us a little bit how you're feeling this afternoon.
I'm feeling ready to go.
Yes?
I'd like to wrap up this three-parter on Cicero.
Well, you sound like you've had enough.
No. It's just I spent a lot of time with this guy back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I still love his style, but there are a lot of other really important things that we would like to talk about.
This is very true, right?
And let's be honest, right? People don't always listen to us so much to be instructed. They're here for the... No. They're here for the entertainment value. A close family member told me just this week, quote, I don't listen to every episode.
What?
Yes, can you believe that?
Really?
It was, it cut me to the quick, let's say.
Yeah, I can see that you're still kind of reeling from it.
I am reeling, that's right.
Right, so you think people are coming here just for the laughs?
Mostly for the laughs.
Okay.
I'm reeling like old film footage.
Gotcha, right. Well, there's still plenty to riff on when it comes to old Marcus Tullius, right?
Yeah, we got a whole book of chickpea still.
Yeah, without a doubt.
What's up with the gods?
So we're going to cover book 3 of Cicero's De Natura Deorum today and close out this 3-parter. And, we'll give the listener a little bit of a taste in a second. But let's get to our shout-out.
We got a shout-out.
So who does this go to?
This comes from the Right Reverend Dr. Henry Jansma, a friend of mine who lives out in New Jersey, a longtime friend. And he sent me this bio, and he said, use as little as you wish.
Oh, okay.
Which was kind of him because, let me tell you, it's long.
He's got a long bio
This guy has an impressive resume. Born in northern New Jersey in the, should we say, just late 1950s. His parents were immigrants from Friesland. You guys are probably related.
It's possibly.
The Jansma, right?
The old Dutch bingo.
Yeah, you know the names that end in ma and ga. Those are all Frisian.
Yes, right. Yeah.
He began his study of Latin as an undergraduate in 1977 and done a bit of reading for pleasure or for research in Latin through the years. Went to England in 1985 to be mother, apparently. And
what?
Did you get that from the T-ad last time?
Yeah. Okay, now I got it.
How short your memory.
I thought I was. Maybe I'm not as bright-eyed as I thought I was today. But yeah, please keep going. Yeah.
And then he went to Westminster, Philadelphia. Well, after Westminster, Philadelphia, and got a PhD at Durham.
Man, this guy's been all over the place.
He has. He wrote a very interesting thesis on the prophetic office in John Calvin's theology. A student of the Reformation and early Anglican theology, loves to study Latin. He was ordained in the Church of England in 91. Has gone through so many different important positions. Let's see, what else? Oh, here's an interesting detail. His wife's name is Barbara.
That is very interesting. And I see that he has 2 grown children.
Yeah.
Yep. And
a daughter-in-law and a future daughter-in-law in the wings.
Fantastic.
Is that where you keep a daughter-in-law?
That's generally speaking.
Oh, in the wings, okay.
The wings, yeah. And they live in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey.
Yes.
Okay.
Keen gardener. Now, Henry has participated in some of my online classes. Reading a little bit of Latin together. Sharp guy, real sharp. And I think I especially enjoy the photos of his rose garden that he posts on the social medias.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I see he also likes to watch Laurel and Hardy.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, you see that? When it comes to that, are you a Laurel and Hardy or are you a Three Stooges guy?
None of the above.
None?
No, I'm an Abbott and Costello.
Oh, okay.
Abbott and Costello and primarily a Marx Brothers.
Marx Brothers, gotcha.
Yeah, I like to refer to myself as a Marxist.
A Groucho Marxist.
A Groucho Marxist.
I got you. I'm with you there.
You know what he says. Whatever it is, his political philosophy.
It is, I'm against it.
Whatever it is, I'm against it.
And he would never want to join a club that would have him as a member.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So a proud Marxist.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you, Henry Jansma. Do you think Henry listens to every episode?
He better. That's all I can say. He better.
All right, Dave, tell us, okay, what are we going to get into today?
So today we are leaving behind books 1 and 2. The listener, the viewer will remember, book 1 is the elucidation of the Epicurean view of the gods. The gods don't care about us.
Yep.
They're there, but they're off doing godlike things. After Book 1, there is the Stoic Refutation, which is in Book 2. And so in Book 2, the Stoic Balbus refutes Velleius, the Epicurean from Book 1, and sets out the Stoic view of the gods.
Yes.
And remember, the Stoic view of the gods has 4 different parts, right? They exist, was the first one. Then what are they like? Quales sint? What are their characteristics? The third one was that they care for that the world is governed and created by them, created and governed.
Yep.
And the fourth one is that they care for the human race.
So it's a radical change from what Velleius was putting forth.
It's a clear departure from Epicureanism.
Yep.
The gods exist and they care for us. They take care of us. Now, as we pivot, everybody likes to say that, to Book 3, we have the refutation of the Stoic position as presented by the gentleman that represents Cicero, namely Cotta.
Cotta. Gotcha. Excellent. All right, before we dive in, though,
yes.
I think, did we promise the listener last time a little bit more about Mr. Rackham?
Yes, we were going to solve a little bit of the Rackham mystery. Apparently, our diversion into the history of board games, and it's not really a board game. It's a boring game.
It's a boring game, yes. You're referring to Racco.
I'm referring to Racco. Do you think that will become a running gag?
Personally, I hope so. The listener might disagree.
Well, when the name of your podcast is Ad Nauseam and you work in the vomitorium, everything's a running gag.
That's very, very true. That's very true. Yeah, I got to say, I came home that night,
right?
And the first thing I said to my wife was like, "Did you ever grow up playing Racco?" And she said, "What are you talking about?"
Yes, exactly.
And so I went on and on about Racco, and she actually asked me to stop.
Yes, you stopped. She said, "Join the boat."
Join the boat. Right. So, do you got some information?
I have some information on Rackham. It was actually one Henry Jansma that sent me Rackham's obituary.
Oh, wow.
And as a classicist myself, who will someday die, all things being equal, I think it's interesting to read a classicist's obit.
Yeah.
Did you know that obituary is of Latin origin?
I did know that.
Okay, all right.
Yes, exactly.
So
what did you find out?
I found out.
Did you find out what the H stands for?
It stands for Harris.
Harris Rackham.
Mr. Harris Rackham, fellow of Christ Church, Cambridge, died early yesterday. Now, this was in 1944. It wasn't our yesterday.
Okay.
By his death, Cambridge loses a fine classical scholar, and Christ's College loses a loyal and influential member. She was born in 1868 and was educated at City London College, went to Cambridge. He was first in the classical trip boss. After 2 first classes in the classical trip boss, he was elected a fellow in 1894.
Now, that's a British thing, right?
The trip boss, I think,
getting firsts and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very competitive, academically competitive.
Yeah.
Which I think explains a lot of the excellent philology that came out of England.
Without a doubt.
In the 19th century.
Yeah.
But he went on to translate Cicero's De Finibus, The End of Good and Evil, Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. He was interested in poetry, pictorial and plastic art, toured the United States and Canada. He sympathized strongly with the Labour Party.
Okay.
And then eventually in his retirement translated Natura Deorum, the Academica, and some of Pliny's natural history.
So he was in his scholarly work was mostly in translation?
Yes, it looks like translation and teaching.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Not to what one would call original scholarship.
Right.
We both know that in the world of academia, original scholarship is highly valued.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like original scholarship. Probably not as much as the next guy. But the translators, like Rackham, here we are using his work almost 80 years after his death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no.
Because it has a lasting value.
Sure.
Even as it becomes archaic.
And I think that, if you were to compare original scholarship, although the myriad forms in which it can take, if you were going to, in terms of reach, if you were going to choose between original scholarship and being a translator, getting your stuff before people's eyes, I would say go with translating.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Stanley Lombardo, right? And the work he's done. Good stuff.
Now, I don't mean to...
No.
I don't mean to throw shade at Mr. Rackham. I mean, having just read his obituary.
Right.
But and as wonderful as his translation is, it's from 1933. I think we need a new edition.
It needs to be redone. That's true.
Yes.
Language changes.
Right.
Archaisms, I think, ought to be updated.
So yeah, I think this one, which I admit going into this series that we've done, I didn't know a ton about this. I had not read De Natura Deorum. It was not part of my graduate work at all.
Well, you pursued, right? Your interest in the classics was more literary than mine. I got into it because of philosophy. Classics was a sub-room, or a foundation is better, of philosophy and theology. I've grown to appreciate Ovid, Virgil, and such things.
Yes.
But you kind of took a different route.
That's true. And the thing that I most appreciate about is maybe not so much the philosophical arguments here, but what it reveals about, culturally speaking, about the ancient Romans.
Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about...
We're going to get quite a bit of that.
About, at the end here on some of those kind of those cultural differences between the Greeks and the Romans.
Definitely.
Right.
And that's really the thesis of today's... Can an episode have a thesis?
Of course it can have a thesis.
A thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis?
Maybe one of those three.
All right, go all Hegelian on you.
Right.
Okay.
So where do we start?
I think we should start at the beginning of Book 3, Libertius.
Sounds
and
good.
I'd like to read the first sentence, which is also the first paragraph, which is just a few sentences.
Okay.
And then you'll give us the Rackham
Yes, I will.
translation, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right, so here goes. Quae cum Balbus dixisset, tum ad ridens Cotta, sero inquit, mihi Balbe praecipis quid defendam, ego enim te disputante quid contradicerem mecum ipsa meditabar, nequatam refelendi tui causa, quam ea quae minus intelligebam requirendi, cum autem suo cuique judicio sit utendum, difficula factu est, me id sentire quod tu velis.
All right. And in Rackham's translation, Cotta smiled when Balbus said this. It is too late, Balbus, he rejoined, for you to tell me what view I am to support. For while you were discoursing, I was pondering what arguments I could bring against you, though not so much for the purpose of refuting you, as of asking for an explanation of the points which I could not quite understand. However, each man must use his own judgment, and it is a difficult task for me to take the view which you would like me to take. Now, it seems it's
quite good.
It's good, but we'll talk about maybe kind of the persona of Cotta here.
Right.
He sounds a little dangerous to me. He sounds like he kind of, he's got it's the honey in the cup. He goes, I don't really want to refute you, Balbus. I just have some follow-up questions here.
Yeah.
But there's
right?
There's a serpent under this flower, I think.
Okay.
All right.
I haven't heard that expression.
That's a Shakespearean thing.
Serpent behind the flower.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. I've heard teeth behind the smile.
I think it's
Do you know that one?
Teeth behind the smile. Yeah, that's right. I think it comes from Taming of the Shrew, where it says, she appeareth the innocent flower, but she's the serpent under it.
I have an alternative, maybe.
Okay.
Something that happens to me often.
Yeah.
It's the clog in my ice maker. Does that happen to you?
I don't have an ice maker.
Your refrigerator doesn't have an
No, we got the basic model.
Yeah, I don't want to, we got a nice one, let me say. We spent on our refrigerator.
Yeah.
People warned me, don't get this particular Korean brand because the ice maker will clog, and clog it does.
Really?
Yeah, so from the outside, like Cotta, it has the appearance of great functionality, but there's a serpent under the flower, there's a clog in the ice maker.
There's a clog in the ice machine. So we'll see if that holds up.
Okay.
Right. All right.
It's kind of like when the prosecuting attorney steps up and he approaches the witness to cross-examine, and he smiles at first and turns on his heel a little bit, and then there's the pointed question.
Right.
That is going to happen.
Okay.
And
Cotta's going to wheel around.
He's going to wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he'll deal. And like you said, he's interesting. He represents Cicero, right? And if Cicero is anything, he's the consummate lawyer.
Yes.
And he's having fun, I think, in this representation. But let's look at a couple elements here in what we quoted as just setting the stage for the rest of it.
Okay.
You said, what was it? Not so much in order to refute you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Right,
As of asking for an explanation of the points, which I could not quite understand.
That's right. So the Latin is refelendi tui causa. So not so much to refute you, he says, but then he goes on to say, but each man must use his own judgment, right? Mm-hmm. Sound familiar? Which of the three schools is that going to characterize?
Well, that's going to be your academic.
That's correct.
Right, the skeptic.
Yes, Epicureans, they follow their guy, the one that Lucretius in his poem, entitled The Whole Shebang, right?
Yep.
Refers to as a deus, right? He's practically a god. And the Stoics, they're going to follow their Stoic luminaries. The academics, each is going to use his own judgment.
Okay, all right.
So that's intended to set the tone for the whole book.
Right. It, again, still sounds to me that Cotta is he's the friendly attorney here.
Yes.
Everyone has to decide for themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But okay. Well, let's.
It is friendly, but it's a real clear statement of academic.
True. Gotcha. Yes.
Academic doctrine, you might say.
Right.
All right. So we saw Stoic theology in Book 2. 4 ideas or terms are identified together, and they are ratio, reason, natura, nature, mundus, the world, and deus, God. These 4 things are identical in Stoic theology. Reason is divine, nature is divine, the world is divine, and the gods are divine. So you can use any of these interchangeably. And the reason that this is important, so to speak, is that later on, as we're going to see, Cotta says, I can't accept all of that, but I'm going to adopt a modified Stoic position that the gods actually do exist.
Okay, so where am I jumping ahead too much? So where exactly does he disagree with Balbus then? I mean, what is he modifying?
Well, he's going to criticize quite stridently many of the practices of Roman religion during the book.
Okay.
During the course of the book. And he's going to say, reason doesn't really lead us to these conclusions. You can't really use Stoic syllogisms to establish the existence of the gods. And he has an argument against their existence based on the wickedness, the evil in the world. It's an argument from evil.
Sure.
But then at the very end, he does something that's quite strange and says, as we'll see, all in all, the Stoic position, Balbus is more correct than the Epicureans.
Okay.
This is a head scratcher. This is that rift in Cicero I was trying to put my finger on.
Yeah.
How can he do that? How can an academic do that? If Cotta represents Cicero, how can Cicero do that? The solution is going to be, it's because the Stoic position is the closest to Roman conservatism and ancient tradition.
I see.
Unlike the Greeks.
Gotcha. So it's more than him just, I mean, if he's saying that, the Stoic position is slightly more persuasive than Velleius, I mean, that doesn't really say a whole lot. It's like saying he's the tallest building in Wichita.
Oh,
right?
Nice.
So, but you're saying there's more to it than that.
There's more to it.
It's not just that it's slightly more convincing. It's connected to something larger in Roman culture.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
the
right.
whole edifice collapses. The whole edifice of Oedipus.
It's even Oedipus complex. Yeah.
The whole edifice of Roman religion, tradition, and the state, all three of which are inseparable, collapses if the gods don't exist. So they have to.
I see. Gotcha. All right. Okay.
So Cotta is going to take issue, right, with each one of these contentions in Book 3. He's going to argue against reason being identified with nature, being identified with the world, being identified with the gods.
Okay.
And then Book 3 ends with this statement by Cicero that has bedeviled interpreters actually since the patristic era.
Should we save it?
We should say
Let's say that.
to the very end of the episode,
Right,
4 hours from now. So since the time of Augustine, 1,500 years, people are scratching their heads saying, what in the world does Cicero mean there at the end of Book 3? How can that be? Now,
I do understand that Book 3 it's missing some pieces.
Yes,
right?
most likely.
So, but not enough to kind of have us throw up our hands and say we can't really know what's going on.
No, definitely
here.
not.
Okay.
It's far more complete than, say, his De Republica or his De Legibus, right?
Gotcha.
The Republic or the Laws.
All right.
So there's a lot there that we can go by.
Okay.
We can go on.
Now, do we want to take each of these arguments kind of one by one? Or?
No, I think we should move a little more herky-jerky.
Okay. Well, let's herky-jerky. Where
All
are we going with
All
this?
right.
Yeah.
So we should note that Cicero is consistent throughout this book, whether speaking in his own voice or through the provisional representative Cotta.
Okay.
Right? When he is examining the Epicurean school, he ranks them on the lowest rung of the philosophical and dialectical ladders. Cicero presents a united front, both personally, so whenever he speaks, and through his academic spokesman.
Okay.
So Cicero is, throughout the book, until we get right up to the very end in the unusual part, he is very consistent.
Okay.
In his presentation of his ideas. When we get to the point about the existence of the gods, Cotta responds to Balba and says that he will always defend, this is really important, Cotta says he will always defend the opiniones, the sacra, the ceremonias, and the religiones that are received from the ancestors a maioribus.
Okay. All right. So that takes, those cannot be meddled with.
That's right.
All right.
And this is the first note we might say, the first note we hear, that something is odd, right? Why would an academic say, look, I'm the Pontifex Maximus, I've not forgotten my responsibility, I will defend to the death these 4 aspects of Roman religion because we've got them from Maioribus. This is an argument to authority, right? This is the same kind of ad auctoritatem argument that Cicero will criticize at the beginning of Book 1, when he says, the Pythagoreans, they just believe whatever Pythagoras says, ipsa dixit, right? Why do you think that? Ipsa dixit. He said it, so it's got to be true. Now in Book 3, we have Cotta, who is Cicero's rep, saying, I'm never going to pick a fight with these aspects of Roman religion. They come from the ancestors.
Well, this seems like an odd take for an academic to to hold, isn't it? I mean, if they're marked by kind of a skepticism or kind of an agnosticism across the board, why is this one place where they say, well, no, I'm not moving here. I won't question this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Does the question make sense?
Would that make sense for an academic philosopher of this time and era?
No, except that he's a Roman.
Okay.
See, that's the distinction.
Gotcha.
Roman philosophy, we're anticipating the end a little bit, but Roman philosophy has to proceed along different lines than Greek philosophy.
Okay.
Because the appeal to authority trumps the appeal to reason among the Romans in a way that it doesn't among the Greeks.
I see.
So think about your own faith journey, right? I'm not talking about Steve Perry and other.
We can talk about Steve Perry. I would love to. Another time.
But your own faith journey. Journey is a word people like to use a lot when it comes to describing their faith.
Yep.
I think it's one of those terms that is intended to be not too specific, maybe? You think people use the word journey so that they can allow other people room to have a differing interpretations?
I think so. I think it's kind of it's like it's like a softball pitch. Tell me about your journey. You can. I'm asking you to kind of talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay.
Right.
So what's your faith journey, right? What's the relationship between reason and authority in your own development of whatever beliefs you hold to be true?
You want me to just drop
that?
Go,
yeah. How did this happen? And you can turn it back on me, and then we'll turn it to Cicero, of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want this to turn it just a kind of a broad confessional.
No.
But I mean, I would
say
say
some things on your mind.
Well, I mean, I think that my own faith journey has been kind of equal parts, kind of bouncing around, questioning a lot of things that I grew up with, but at the end of the day, coming around to see the value of the traditions that I grew up with and still hold. Not that I completely have bought into kind of everything rotely that was taught to me and I was brought up with, but it rests on the foundation that I was brought up in.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, how about yourself, man?
Well, like most people, as children, we believe what we're taught.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a natural connection between children and their parents. There's this notion of trust. I heard someone describe it once as your parents are kind of like gods in your house, right? They can make food appear magically. Right? Where did that come from? Right? Would you like an apple? Here's an apple, right? Right. As a very young child, this is like magic. And if you have loving parents, as I'm blessed to have, then that sense of attachment grows very strong, and it's not just limited to physical things, but what your parents think as well.
Right.
So like most people, my faith beliefs were formed largely, at least as I experienced it, by an appeal to authority. This is what we do. This is our family. This is what we believe. Now, as you grow and mature, you start to examine them. And I can remember examining them in some respects at a very young age, but not seriously till I was much older. I think eventually, for those who persist in the faith they were taught at their mother's knee, they have to stop using the appeal to authority or transfer it to a different kind of authority, right? So I believe the things that I do not because my parents told me specifically, but because now the authority comes from another source.
Right.
In some traditions, it's the voice of the church. In others, it's the voice of Scripture or some other kind of thing. But I think that generally speaking, reason plays a subordinate role in all of this. Indispensable, but not primary.
Did you go through a kind of a distinct rebellious period in your life?
I did, but I wasn't rebelling so much against the things I had been told. I think I was kind of more rebelling against what were some of the consequences of the things I had been told.
Yeah.
Right. If I continue to believe these things, here are some of the consequences that naturally follow.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I necessarily want those, but it wasn't sustained or very long.
Gotcha.
How about you?
Yeah. I mean, it was never I went through a rebellious period, not in kind of the cliched kind of teenage coming of age movie kind of way. It was never kind of like a kind of a physical or kind of a cultural rebellion, but it was more kind of.
Did you get a motorcycle?
No, nothing like that. I mean,
leather jacket.
I had the most nerd-tastic moped you've ever seen in my life, right? And it was not a rebellion. If anything, that took me.
Nerd-tastic.
It was very nerd. Yeah, exactly. We can talk about that another day. But it was more like, I got to a point. And it wasn't like during my teenage years, but it was when I was a bit older, kind of rejecting things, almost kind of for the sake of rejecting them,
right.
Burning something to the ground and kind of having to rebuild it on my own.
Right, it's common.
It is very common, right? There's nothing strange about that. But I think it's often accompanied with a more kind of like a you can't tell me what to do, Mom and Dad.
Right.
It was never like that. It was more kind of it was in my head.
Is that 18-year-old Winkle right there? Is that the voice we got?
Right. That was something like that.
Okay.
Right? Exactly.
You can't tell me what to do.
As I peeled out at 2 miles an hour on my my Pinto moped made by J.C. Penney.
J.C. Penney.
That's right. Yeah. I think I saw some pictures hanging around. But it was more like I kind of grew up and I realized that in my upbringing, I felt like there were some questions that I wasn't supposed to ask.
Or maybe they were avoided.
They were avoided. I think that's probably better. Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to ask them.
Yeah, your mom would say, would you like you ask a difficult question and she offers you a Twizzler.
Right, exactly, which I was more than happy to take. I like a good Twizzler, right.
So what is the relationship? I guess that's the point here. Mm-hmm. What is the relationship between an appeal to authority and an appeal to reason when it comes to the question of the God's existence?
Right.
Just to try to clarify where we're going, the standard academic answer is reason alone is the bar for the making of such a decision.
Right.
And the Stoics, Epicureans, they don't sacrifice reason. They claim that their beliefs are fully rational, but they also appeal to authority.
Right.
Which the academics are not supposed to do.
Gotcha. Now, it strikes me that when we talk about, these customs and rituals and rites of Roman religion, there certainly seems to be kind of an aspect, why do we do these things? Well, it's because we've always done them. And I wonder if part of the power of that, a lot of what the Romans, they're just what we would call kind of distinctly Roman religion, are built upon indigenous practice of the Italian peoples, the Etruscans and the like.
Well, because augury seems to have come from the Etruscans, is that right?
Right. And I wonder if some senses that kind of stuff goes so far back that you cannot point to an origin. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think with Greek philosophers we can kind of point to and say, well, this kind of idea, this kind of rationality, this approach to rationality started with this guy.
Right.
But the religious practices of the Etruscans goes back into that kind of fog of prehistory. It's like this is it's autochthonous, right? It comes from the ground itself.
Nice word.
And so therefore it has a power of its own because you can't point to its origin.
I think is exactly right.
Okay. All right.
And it's therefore accepted on authority.
Authority. Right.
Hallowed antiquity.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So as the book continues, and I'm going to be quoting a little bit here from some previous work of mine. So if it sounds like I'm reading something, I am.
You are, right.
But it's mine. I wrote it.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Cotta subjects the traditional Roman beliefs to exacting scrutiny on a wide range of topics, from things like the holy sites of Regillus to divination, but he does so as a type of rational game. Now, I have to confess here, I'm quoting from the dissertation we referenced earlier. I used the word construct in my dissertation.
Oh, why would you do such a thing?
I don't know. The year was 2003.
Oh.
It's almost 20 years ago.
Construct was all the rage?
Construct was everywhere.
Right.
I had a pair of construct jeans, didn't you?
I did, exactly. I wore them every day.
But looking back, with the benefit of hindsight and senescence and, more facial hirsitude, I got a beard.
Yeah.
I can see that the word construct does not belong in anybody's dissertation.
It's one of those weasel words.
It's so weaselly, right? So here we go. Within the confines of this construct, it's bad academic prose.
I blame your committee for that.
They should take away my PhD.
That. Yeah.
The discussion proceeds by ratio. So it proceeds by a reason. Cotta uses the academic method to refute most of what Balbus said, but here's the shocking part. He's scrupulous at all points to affirm his belief in Roman religion.
So there you have it. So is this Cotta or is this Cicero?
Yes.
It's both?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a both and.
I gotcha.
Yeah. Not a neither nor. For example, he says, while he's criticizing auguries from livers and raven song, he carefully confesses, nevertheless, I believe these things, right? Quibus ego credo, these are the things I believe, right? Mm-hmm. But he bases it on an appeal to authority, the Roman atius navius, right?
Yeah.
So it's an appeal to authority.
Okay.
Now, there's a couple of ways to read this, right? One is a very cynical way, and this I would say is the prevailing interpretation from antiquity. This is the part that bedeviled the patristics. Because Cotta is Cicero's spokesman, maybe Cicero is just saying this because he's secretly an atheist or a full-blown, a skeptic or a full-blown atheist. but he's got to pretend to subscribe to Roman religion because that's what everybody in his generation did. And, these superstitions of birdsong and looking at chicken livers or things like that, that's just for the masses, right?
So he's got to do the dance because this is what the rubes want to see.
Yes. Well, we could cite contemporary political speeches and so forth, almost all of which end with "God bless this or that country," right? Are we supposed to ask, do those persons really believe in the deity that they are invoking? I don't think we're supposed to ask that. It's just boilerplate.
Right. I mean, I even see that in kind of references to the Constitution.
Oh yeah,
or the founding fathers.
You going to go political here?
I'm not. I stop me if I do.
I'll stop you.
But I think these things are also kind of under attack to some degree as well.
Yeah.
But that kind of the use of quoting the Constitution or referring to the founding fathers as an argument from authority. They said it, therefore you don't question it. Right.
Yes, very selectively, I suppose.
Oh, without a doubt.
But was it Eisenhower who said the American people are very religious and it doesn't matter which one? Words to that effect.
Eisenhower?
Yes. Very, very, very close. Are very religious people and it doesn't really matter which one.
Right.
So that's kind of this cynical. So that's the one interpretation. Cicero's spokesman, Cotta, and in fact Cicero himself consistently in the dialogue, all three books, supports Roman religion. Why does he do that? Well, it could just be it's in his interest. The other explanation is he's functioning along with a different set of arguments than his Greek predecessors. Reason is not the standard for making the decision. It's actually authority.
Okay.
So something can be prima facie irrational, but if authority tells you, so what? And
we don't see this amongst the Greeks.
We do not see this among the Greeks.
There's no kind of appeal to some kind of this is the way we've always done it kind of authority.
Not in Greek philosophy, I would say, except the examples that we've cited. An individual sage, right, an individual sapiens like Pythagoras, we can appeal to his personal authority. But my understanding is that it's based on the fact that he has arrived at some special knowledge that's rationally demonstrable. So Pythagoras knows the score. He's gone through the syllogisms. He's completed the exercises in the back of the book, right?
Yeah.
So now he's the one that knows,
right?
Just like if I go to the doctor, right, and I have a little bit of a different opinion on something, that toe should be removed, right? And he says that toe should not be removed.
You really want it removed?
No, I don't.
You don't? No.
But if he says it should not be, I defer to his authority, not simply because he's the doctor.
Yeah.
But because he's supposed to have a degree in toectomies or something, right?
Right.
He's done the research.
Yeah.
It's not even getting a smile. There's no such thing as a toectomy.
I'm sure it's been done.
All right.
Yeah. I got to think that you all right with kind of continuing kind of the Greek versus Roman?
Yes, but I don't claim to be such an authority that everything I say is,
Okay. But I'm curious. These thoughts jumped to my mind, and I want your opinion.
All right.
That maybe a big part of the difference is that in Cicero's day, Rome wasn't quite at empire status, but it was expanding, and there was kind of this notion of kind of a spreading Romanness throughout the Mediterranean,
for sure.
And compare that to the zenith of the Greek world, where Athens is kind of at the top of the heap, much more fragmented. Right, it was many more city state and city. They all had their own customs, dialects, and laws. And I wonder if this idea that Roman religion is kind of a binding thing that binds it's not just about Rome. It's about everything that's being kind of falling under this larger growing umbrella of Rome. That's also kind of part of the appeal here, or part of the purpose that the Greeks just didn't have that kind of that empire view of things.
Right. So my answer will be a little bit speculative, but I think that, so far as I understand it, what you say is absolutely correct. The whole notion of being Greek, of a Panhellenism, is a foreign kind of idea that arose primarily because of external pressure. When the Persians start to bump up against the Greeks, suddenly you can think of yourself as not so much an Athenian, not so much a Corinthian or Theban, something like that, but as a Greek. Right? We're united by the Homeric epics. We're united by a roughly identical pantheon.
Yes.
And so people like Demosthenes, his Panhellenism is here. It's in opposition to Philip and the Macedonians.
Exactly.
And but by the time we get to Cicero's era, the Greeks are highly fragmented. Right? There's no more sense of national identity that I'm aware of.
Right.
They're running on fumes. Right?
Yes.
We got a great language, but even all the luminaries that are thought of as quintessentially Greek, a lot of them are primarily Athenian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the Corinthians, thought of themselves as children of Socrates.
No, not at all.
By
No.
any stretch.
I would totally agree with that. And even if you look at, Panhellenic sanctuaries and festivals, they weren't really they weren't really designed to kind of bring the Greeks together.
No.
Or if you think about the ancient Olympics, it's
Right.
it's still city-states going head to head.
Yes, representing very parochial interests.
Right, and you're kind of doing war in a more friendly way.
Yep.
And if you look at like oracle sites like Dodona and Delphi, there was nothing that brought the Greeks there together aside from just kind of a shared belief in what the function of this oracle was. It was still very individual.
Much of the notion of a shared Hellenic culture is really late.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say. The language is common, although there's lots of dialect variations. The pantheon is more or less the same, but each city-state had its own divinity, which competed against the others.
Right.
So it is quite different than Rome, for sure.
Sure, right. And if we think about the modern country of Greece, only in effect since 1825 or so, that notion of kind of a unified Greek city-state, even under Alexander,
Right.
Nothing like it was in antiquity.
No.
Yeah.
So Rome, right, the Roman miracle goes from a tiny little village on the banks of the Tiber to eclipsing all of Italy eventually, and then a lot of Europe. It had to roll along with a lot of assumptions about a unified culture.
Right.
And that's what Cicero is representing.
And these ancient religious rites, I think, are strike at the heart of that.
Definitely. Now, maybe if we had a better historical record of all of those indigenous peoples, the dozens of little tribes on the Italian peninsula whom the Romans subsumed, if we had a little better knowledge of that, maybe the picture would look more like what we've just described with respect to the Greeks.
Right.
But we don't have that.
Right. There's gaps in our knowledge. We don't have
Correct.
we don't have things that give that point of view.
Right.
But I think also kind of this notion of as Rome grows, of conferring citizenship on these conquered peoples, or Caesar's notion of clemency.
Right.
It comes with kind of an expected. Okay, now you buy into this.
Right.
Right. That you buy
absolutely.
into this. Yeah. It's a gift, but it's also it comes with a pressure to buy into all this shared culture and this long history.
Yeah, you have to give up the worship of your gods, or at least not treat the worship of your gods as
More important
than the gods of the Roman state.
Yes.
And I don't think there is a clear analog among the Greeks.
Yeah. No, I think that's true.
So, as Cotta attacks the Olympian deities, as he does in Book 3, he attacks a sustained attack on the Olympian and other deities. He even attacks some Eastern and specifically Roman deities. But he prefaces all of that with a comment that, this is interesting, he has gained better information, meliora me didicissa, they have taught me better, how to worship the gods. The little pots, the little clay pots left behind by Numa, what are called the capeduncula.
I like that.
Capeduncula.
Yeah.
You know the Washington football team
Yes.
recently took on a new mascot.
The Commanders?
The Commanders. Did
terrible.
you read any of the description for why?
I didn't. I just saw the logo and I thought,
Yeah, I read it in the
awful.
newspaper. I agree. They took it on because Washington, D.C. is a center of political leadership. Therefore, they're going to call themselves the Washington Commanders. I think this is a huge miss. Do you think the majority of the country, other than those living in Washington, D.C., want to think of themselves as commanded by Washington,
No,
D.C.?
not at all. It's very myopic. Yeah, it's terrible.
And so the football team, we know you're not a footballer, but
Yeah.
the football team represented by the nation's capital called the Commanders, I'm rooting against them just on that basis alone.
Yeah, I really liked Washington football team.
It was pretty good.
I like that.
Woofed.
Exactly.
But beyond that, I think the capedunculas would have been much better.
Oh my gosh, the Washington Capadunculas?
Yeah, the little pots.
I would have bought the T-shirt.
Exactly.
Without a
So
doubt.
Cotta says, I've gained better knowledge about the gods from the capeduncula, the little pots left behind by Numa, and from the Mos Maiorum, than from all the arguments of the Stoics. strange appeal to authority.
It is a really strange...
coming from the mouth of an academic.
Right.
Now, can you share a little bit, or can we share a little bit with the audience? Numa? Who's Numa?
Numa he's one of the kind of the prime ancestors
Yes.
of Rome, right?
Yes, there's some kind of mnemonic device. Ramen noodles, toss and turn, save them.
What? I've never heard
You don't
this.
know this?
No.
It's the way to remember the 7 kings of Rome.
Okay.
Romulus, Numa, and then I forgot. It's all noodles after that. But Numa's the second one.
So he's going back to the 8th century.
Correct.
Yes.
And Numa is the quintessential lawgiver. Right?
Right.
Numa is the Hammurabi, the Moses, the Confucius of the Romans.
Yeah.
And Cotta says, look, you can get better knowledge about how to worship the gods from the little capeduncula that Numa left us somewhere in the city of Rome than from all the reasons and arguments of the Stoics.
And with that, you said that it's a rejection of the Olympian deities. So
It's a criticism of them.
So it's a bit of a kind of a chin flip to the Greeks, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're saying that,
Yeah.
because as most people know, the Romans incorporated lots of the Greek pantheon into their own, but they had this much more kind of these indigenous ties to these to the Mos Maiorum that we're talking about here, right?
Chin flip.
That's
a new one for me. You're just full of new English interesting phrases tonight.
It's the Italian finger, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's like
Serpent under the flower. That was one.
Yes, the serpent. Yes, she appeareth the innocent flower, but 'tis the serpent under it.
Oh, interesting. And now the chin flip.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it is.
Yep.
So we also, I guess we could add to our interpretation a third possibility, right?
Okay.
It's not a kind of pragmatic belief in the gods to hide an actual atheism. Second, maybe it's not because the Romans actually value authority more than reason. Maybe it's the third one. He's just kind of poking fun at the Greeks. This is just national pride.
Yeah.
Which the Romans, have a lot of.
Sure, right. I mean, I think that's a very human kind of thing. That
it is.
How does one justify one's patriotism?
Right.
It often comes with these kind of appeals to authority, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In America, we tend to think of things happened 200 years ago as being ancient.
Absolutely.
But these kinds of things go way, way, way back.
Definitely.
Right? So I like that idea that they're kind of poking at the Greeks.
Yeah. Speaking of poking at the Greeks,
yes,
I think we should take some time now to plug some products.
And we're going to poke at the Greeks by doing that.
No, it was a very lame attempt at a segue.
Gotcha.
This, didn't work.
Let's get to it.
This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you.
To you?
To you.
To all of you.
By
who?
Racial Coffee.
Racial Coffee. Tell us about Racial Coffee, Dave.
Well, I have known Mark Helweg, the founder of Racial Coffee, since the year 2000.
Okay, that's a long time.
It's a long time.
So that was before you wrote this dissertation about Cicero?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes, and while my dissertation may have grown stale, the coffee Mark produces is very fresh.
It's very true, right?
So Mark moved around the country, and then he landed on this fantastic entrepreneurial idea, which is let's make a premium home coffee machine. You go to one of those beaglery barneries?
The barneries that have the brew barns.
What do they typically do? The nice ones set out on their butcher block counter a number of different carafes with some kind of conical pour-over device on the top.
That's true. Yeah.
And it makes a good cup of coffee.
Yeah, usually.
There's one here in Grand Rapids over on Michigan Avenue. You ever been over there?
I go up and down that street.
Okay,
once in a while.
yeah, there you go. Good coffee. But what if you want to bring that into your home and you don't want the fuss and the muss? What are you going to do?
This is where you pick up either the ratio 6 or the ratio 8.
Yes. Now, word on the street is some of the silly banter we use during the ads, maybe the jokes are getting a little bit old.
Really? Are we going to try to rectify that now? Or are we just
No, I don't think so.
We're just going to do the same old shtick.
Let's adopt like a 6-month plan.
All right. Well, I have the 6.
Okay, let's hear.
And you have the 8.
I have the 8.
Right.
It's 2 ratios better.
Yep. I have never had a machine like this before in my life, right? Before this, I had the senior beanery.
The Dackenblecker.
The Dackenblecker with the roasting pan beneath it.
Right.
And I thought this is as good as it got.
I liked how you didn't say scorch pad.
So we're doing the old jokes by...
We're changing them.
Okay, gotcha.
There's a kind of a tackish brang. Oh, Winkle.
Oh man. No, in my machine, I have never noticed the tackish brang.
I haven't either.
Right.
Everything
Every day
has been as fresh as the jokes we use to present this material.
That's right.
You grind the beans.
You grind the beans.
Do you have a little bean grinder?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
You put them in the cone.
Yep.
You slide it onto the ratio 8 in my case.
Yes.
And there's nothing underneath to keep it hot.
No.
There is a little sensor, however, that tells the machine the pot's in place. It's time to brew.
That's right. And so then you go through your 3 stages.
That's right.
Right. You get the bloom stage.
The bloom.
Yep.
There's no serpent under that flower.
No, not at all. There's the brew.
The brew.
Which I would argue is the most important stage.
I think if you don't have brew,
then
it just won't do.
It won't do. And then it's ready.
It's ready.
It's ready.
And you pour it off.
You pour it off.
Delicious cup of coffee.
Exactly. I was skeptical. So with no burning thing beneath it, how is it going to stay warm? But the carafe does the job.
It does.
Yes.
It's vacuum sealed. It's double walled. I don't know. There's a tiny little technician in there who's lighting matches all the time, keeping it warm. Something.
Frankly, I don't even want to know. It's
you don't
magical.
want to know.
It's magical. Right.
So after having said all that, maybe you, the listener, are wondering, when is that sweepstakes going to end? And we're going to find out which of us won a brand new ratio 6.
Right. And I believe we said it was going to be today, but we
can't trust us.
We can't trust us.
Who can trust us?
Episode 74.
74 is it.
Yep.
We're finally, and you might think, I'm so tired of waiting, but listener, viewer, this is really in your interest. You have one more opportunity. Go to ratiocoffee.com/ANCO and enter the secret coupon code. It's 6567.
6567.
And you'll be signed up. Maybe you just want to buy a coffee machine outright.
Mm-hmm. So if you go to ratiocoffee.com,
right,
and in the coupon code box, you type in ANCO, I believe.
15% off.
Yes, and that's the 6 or the 8.
And if you are one of those loyal listeners, how grateful we are for you, who have already purchased a ratio, we'd like you to send us some comments. Maybe there's something you'd like us to read on the air to dislodge the tackish brang. Send it along. We'll read it and then make fun of you.
Yeah, let us know what you love about it, and because we're desperate for material here.
In addition to ratio, this episode is brought to you by Hackett Publishing.
Yes, Hackett Publishing, in business for, I think, over 50 years now.
This is the 50th year right now.
Right now, we're in the 50th year, based in Indianapolis and also Cambridge, Massachusetts. They've been in the business of making excellent translations from works across the classical canon to many other places in academia. There's stuff in Asian history and philosophy.
Yes, Latin America.
Yeah. Anything that
Buddhism,
you want.
anything you could want. Fine quality material. And just this week, I was promoting Hackett, as is my wont, to those who are taking my Lingua Latina per se illustrata class.
And that text is published by Hackett.
That's
right?
the one. And they said, I'm going to buy the text. I said, no, don't.
No, wait.
Right. Don't go to that river-themed supply house.
No.
Go to hackettpublishing.com and you can get 20% off and free shipping.
That's right. And with the coupon code, I believe is
AN2022.
AN2022.
I'm sensing a pattern because not too long ago it was AN2021.
That's right.
So who knows where this is going?
But yes, they had an extensive catalog. I've used their stuff in my classes all the time.
We know, Jeff.
Right. Well,
we know. It's
okay.
in your glove box.
Yeah.
We know.
There is a copy of it in my glove box. Right.
So by whom is this episode also brought to listeners and viewers?
By the Gold River Trading Company.
That's right.
Yes. And their excellent tea. This morning, actually yesterday morning, I had some of their green tea.
And?
It was great.
Did it agree with you?
It did very much agree with me. Green tea is supposed to be very good for you.
Yes.
It's supposed to help with
antioxidants.
Antioxidants. It's supposed to do all kinds of wonderful things inside your body.
You don't need to talk about that at any length now. Were there any fannings or little pieces of dust in your tea satchel?
Yes, of course.
No, there weren't.
There weren't?
You got to read the ad copy.
No. It was fanning free.
Many tea producers, so I'm told, just put a dustpan and a broom on the floor of their warehouse, and whatever they sweep up goes down into their, I don't know, rhomboid-shaped tea satchels. Not these guys.
Well, I assume Gold River just did that too.
No. They go out and they get the best sourced tea, and they put them in pyramidal sachets.
Yes. I love the shape.
Yeah, you can, and the packaging generally is amazing.
Oh my God, I don't even want to open it.
Have you tried the cacao?
I have not tried the cacao. I've tried the green and the black.
You're in for a real treat with the cacao.
Really?
Yes, it's fresh.
Is it chocolatey?
It is chocolatey, but I wouldn't say it's Miss Swissy. You gonna be all right?
Right. So, yeah, we want to avoid the Miss Swissy at all costs.
We do.
Right.
But we do want you, loyal listener, avid
tea drinkers?
tea drinker, to go to goldriverco.com, goldriverco.com, enter the coupon code, something Jeff thought up, ANTEA.
Yes.
Up the ante.
Up the ante.
That's right.
That's ad nauseum tea.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you're going to get 10% off any order. Some quality material. Check it out.
Don't miss it. So, Dave, as we get back into it, we're getting towards the end here.
Yes,
right?
we are.
All right. So, what should we focus on here?
Okay.
What's the last of these arguments?
Well, remember that the fourth and most controversial claim that the Stoics make in Book 2 is that the gods care for the human race.
Right.
Deus generi humano consulere. That the gods care for the human race. Cotta is going to go right at this.
Okay.
He's going to aim at it like a rubber bullet from a dart gun. At a paper target.
Okay, that sounds pretty...
That's pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
That's all I got. His attack on divine providence, for those of you who are reading along at home, begins in section 78 and doesn't end until section 93. We're going to read a little snippet of 93 when we get there.
Okay.
But it's a sustained attack. And then Cotta breaks off suddenly.
So what's he doing for all these sections here?
Yes, so it's a standard argument from the evil evident in the world. It's a standard argument pitting the gods' omnipotence against their omniscience. Now, those of you who are students of philosophy in the Western tradition, whether serious or casual, you may think that, well, I guess only the casual ones would think this, that arguments against the existence of the Christian God, for example, are recent and somehow devastating. Well, they may be devastating. I don't think so, but they're definitely not recent.
Right.
The non-Christian theists also attacked their gods for allowing evil into the world.
Right. Right now, I'm teaching a world religions class, and we talk about kind of issues of kind of truth claims and
Right.
the like. And what I found from each time that I've taught this class is that for the students who really struggle with kind of the notion of faith,
Right.
The biggest stumbling block is, why do bad things happen to good people?
Yes.
Over and over again.
Sure.
And this is an element of the same thing.
Yeah, it is. And this is how Cotta develops it. He says that the ratio, the reason of the Stoics, doesn't actually eventuate. It's a good dissertation word, right?
Eventuate?
Eventuate.
Yeah.
It doesn't bring about absolute and complete wisdom for anybody.
Okay.
So the Stoics are united in saying no really wise man has ever existed. The sapiens. We're all looking for the sapiens, the wise man, right?
Right.
Just like I'm always looking for the perfect chicken sandwich.
Have you found it?
No.
No.
Have you tried the Popeyes?
No, I've heard such wonderful things about it. But
I have too.
I've never tried it, though.
Chick-fil-A's good.
Chick-fil-A's good? Okay.
They never have actually found the sapiens. No one ever gets complete and absolute wisdom. The Stoics claim, well, hey, it's possible that you can attain perfect wisdom. And Cotta says, well, that's no consolation, right? Lots of things that are possible, if they don't actually happen, how's that good for me? Right? That seems like a pretty telling criticism.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Right. So I mean, I was so unaware of that. So there is the Stoic claim that kind of perfect wisdom can be achieved.
It's achievable.
Okay.
Now, nobody has, right?
Yes.
Some have gotten pretty close. You know, the Stoic heroes, the Hall of Fame. These would be people like Chrysippus and Zeno himself.
Right.
But they don't claim anyone's actually gotten it. So if the gods care for mankind, right, if it's true that Deus generi humano consulere, they ought to have caused at least one individual to attain complete wisdom.
Oh, okay.
Since the mere possibility of someone doing so produces no measurable advantage.
Aha.
The gods really care for us. Give us an example.
Right.
Now, Christian apologists have a field day with this, right? Because what happened about 40 years ago, Christ was born, right? So they would see this as strongly anticipating.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
this is an attack on the Stoic account of the sapiens. The gods did not, Cotta claims, make all men good, didn't even protect the interests of those who are good, because the morally good do not invariably receive good things. The morally good often have the short stick in life.
Right.
You can even make a pretty persuasive argument that to be morally good is a huge disadvantage.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But this is kind of what Cotta's arguing against is kind of the kind of God as vending machine, right? You put in good moral tokens and you get your Twizzler pack out of the bottom.
That's right. I was going to say something like a Porsche.
A Porsche?
Yeah, have you seen the Cayenne It's a Porsche SUV, I believe.
I have not seen this.
Have you heard of the Cayenne?
I didn't know Porsche made SUVs. I didn't know
it's an SUV-ish kind of thing.
Yeah.
You mean you don't read cars while you're driving?
I don't think about cars at all.
Oh, wow.
As long as mine's running, I'm happy.
All right.
Yes. So you put in your tokens and you get out the Porsche, the Cayenne.
Yeah, it's kind of an SUV thing.
Yeah.
So these examples show, right, that the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer. Mm-hmm. So Cotta says, I'm not going to lend any credence, this is in section 85, to the idea aspects of the complex Stoic system, right?
Okay.
Because it's just not there. It's not going to happen.
All right.
So how do we reconcile Cotta's extended attack on providence? Because that's what really it's an argument about, right?
Yeah.
With the unswerving trust in Roman religious authorities.
Okay. Are you going to break that down for us?
Yeah, because we said, remember that the capeduncula,
exactly.
the little clay pots of Numa, they're better than the Stoic arguments. So how do we put this together?
Weave those two together. Okay. All right.
Right. One reason is that in Book 3, Cotta never explicitly and precisely states what the Roman religious authorities are teaching.
Okay.
Right. So you got the capeduncula
Yep.
and a couple of other things, but Roman religion is notoriously undogmatic. So this is kind of a good way to say, well, yeah, I affirm the religion, so long as there are no follow-up questions, right?
Well, it's more of it's the performing of the ritual.
Exactly.
That's what takes care of it. There's no kind of theological argument on the other side of that. There's not.
Other than that, the gods exist, and if you don't do this, you're in trouble.
But there's no, and this is then how you shall live on the other side of it, right?
No, the ethics doesn't really follow at all.
Right.
It, to my knowledge, it's entirely ritualistic.
Right. Okay, so I think we're getting up against it here.
Yes.
So we're
drawing it down. We're getting close to the end.
Okay.
Right? And so here we have to look at section 95. Section 95 is the very end of Book 3. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've come with us through all 3 episodes and you're here near the end, we just got to say for the record, this is a rich and extended essay, these 3 books. We haven't really done it justice.
There's a ton more, of course, that we skipped over. But,
of course.
Yes.
But here we get right to the end, and I'm going to read a little bit of the Latin,
okay,
the concluding remarks between Balbus and Cotta, and we'll get to that bewildering, bedeviling statement of Cicero about Cotta and the Stoics.
Yes.
All right. Tum Cotta, ego vero et apto redargui me balbe, et ea quae disputavi discerere malavi quam judicardre, et facile me ate vinci posse certe scio. Quipa inquit Velleius, qui etiam somnia putet, ad nos miti abiove, quae ipsa tamen iam levia non sunt quam est stoicorum de natura deorum oratio. Haec cum essent dicta, ita discessimus. Ut Velleo Cotta disputatio verior, mihi Balbi ad veritatis similitudinem videretur esse propensior.
All right, should we get Rackham's take
Let's
on
hear Rackham's translation.
I, on my side, replied Cotta, only desire to be refuted. My purpose was rather to discuss the doctrines I have expounded than to pronounce judgment upon them, and I am confident that you can easily defeat me. Oh, no doubt, interposed Velleius. Why, he thinks that even our dreams are sent to us by Jupiter, though dreams themselves are not so unsubstantial as a Stoic disquisition on the nature of the gods. Here the conversation ended, and we parted, Velleius thinking Cotta's discourse to be the truer, while I felt that of Balbus approximated more nearly to a semblance of the truth. So Cicero comes down
with the
Stoics.
Yeah. And Cotta, his representative, right? Mm-hmm. Goes for the Epicurean side. Right?
There's your big twist.
Yeah, that's the big twist. Now, why does he do this? Well, a couple of possibilities. One is, don't forget, this is a dramatic recounting of an actual historical conversation. Mm-hmm. I think that Cicero is probably playing loose with the history, but for dramatic effect, maybe he has the surprise twist to keep us interested. His purpose is not merely to instruct, it's to entertain, right?
Yes.
Like this podcast.
Right. But I mean, there's the fact that he ultimately sides with Balbus. I mean, that's more than just kind of a gotcha at the end.
That's right.
That's saying something very personal.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the 2 conclusions that Cicero gives. The first one, Velleius' statement that he sides with Cotta, I think we can just set that aside, right?
Okay.
The other one, Cicero's saying that Balbus' statement seems to have more similitude, ad veritatis similitudinem. Mm-hmm. This is really interesting. This is an endorsement of Stoic providence. Right? This is an endorsement of the Deus genere humano consulere.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But it's put in academic terminology. So I think that this is the one that's probably true. So why does he do that?
Well, I think that if we're again talking all about the Mos Maiorum and the rituals of Roman religion, I think that goes much better with Balbus's idea of kind of gods that are personally interested in human beings than what Velleius has to say, or some kind of academic skepticism.
Right.
It's almost as if like the Roman religious ritual part takes care of kind of the necessary acts that you have to do to kind of keep the Pax Deorum, the peace of the gods, and the Stoic kind of argument kind of makes it much more kind of on a personal side. Having done the correct rituals, the gods care for us.
Right.
So don't those seem to be kind of two nice halves of a larger whole?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really, really well put. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. So Cicero's intellectual versatility, we could say, allows him to showcase the academic version of reason in ND3. So Cicero is, able to show, look, I can present all sides well, and the academics have a good basis for their reason. But at the end here, right, he's disinclined towards its conclusions. He says, well, I actually think Balbus and the Stoics are closer to the truth. So how could he do this? Well, he identifies nature with reason. Mm-hmm. And as we saw at the very beginning of the book, nature is benevolent. And so long as nature is leading us, we go toward this conclusion: there are gods.
I got you.
That's where it heads.
All right.
And he seems to believe that without the traditions of the ancestors, the state would soon collapse. Right? And this is why Cotta is frequently appealing to the auctoritas maiorum, right? The authority of the ancestors. That's where it all rests.
Yeah. Fabulous. But before we get out of here, I have to ask: do you know something about the afterlife, the Nachleben, if you don't mind, a little German, of this text?
Oh yeah, it's very influential on all subsequent teleological arguments for the god's existence.
Okay.
Read by Lactantius, who wrote the Divine Institutes and the De Opificio Dei, God's Workshop. Also read by Augustine, read very avidly in the Renaissance.
So early Christians jumped on this.
Oh, they love this.
And
there are some great arguments in here, some we didn't touch. For example, do you know why your nose is right next to your mouth?
No.
It's so that you can smell your food before you eat it.
Well, that makes sense.
Do you know why your, I'm going to try to be delicate here, this is a family show.
Yeah.
Your consuming apparatus and your eliminating apparatus are on opposite ends of your body?
Why is that?
Because you don't want them close together. I assume you don't want to consume and, eliminate in the same neighborhood.
So this is an argument from design.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And there are many, many like this in the book. We talked about the dragonfly last time.
That's right.
Or maybe 2 times ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But the world is put together. And Cicero and the Stoics, Cicero here is just imitating, representing Stoic ideas. They were the first ones outside of the Christian scriptures to recognize these things. And even the Christian scriptures, I would say, with all due respect, don't develop these kinds of arguments. Mm-hmm. They state some of them, right? The heavens declare the glory of God.
Right.
But there is no extended argument. And here it is, all laid out, in a pagan author, one with beautiful, limpid, right, Latin. And so the work has been extraordinarily popular.
So guys like Tertullian and Lactantius and Augustine took these ideas and merged them with a Christian worldview.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. With the statements in Scripture that say this is the truth. So I want to close with 2 things.
Please.
One is a little bit self-indulgent.
Oh, and I go right ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
The first one is from our friend Werner Jaeger, and it's a nice colophon, a nice conclusion to all 3 episodes. He says, for the Greek, the discovery of a contradiction between tradition and reason, between nomos and phusis, would itself involve normally a decision in favor of reason. For to him, that is to the Greek, reason represents nature, the only truth and necessity, whereas Roman conservatism rejects the uninhibited use of this criterion, because, the criterion being reason, that would require the sacrifice and devaluation of some piece of long-established experience.
So there it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right?
Yes. Why
don't you say
the Greeks follow reason,
right,
and the Romans ultimately follow tradition,
right?
Yes.
Okay, so here then the self-indulgent conclusion, right? To quote myself here, throughout his philosophical works, Cicero criticizes the Stoics for their paradoxical position on this, the trust in nature, that progress and wisdom as well cannot make a person wise, and therefore all men are unhappy. In trying to find an alternative to this idea, Cicero ends up stepping across the rift in his own thought from professed academicism to Stoic Natura. So in the end, Cicero sides with nature.
Nature.
Because that's where everything leads, including Roman tradition. The gods exist, ipso facto, all tidied up with a nice bow on top.
Fantastic. So that's how you ended your own study of this.
Yes, that's right.
Work. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's a perfect period at the end of this end of this three-parter.
Yeah, it's this three-parter.
Yep.
So we got to get out of here, don't we?
We do. So we got some people to thank. Who should we thank?
I think we should thank Agricola first and foremost.
Yes.
Our videographer.
Do we? Yeah, he skulks around. Do we trust
skulking?
him? I saw a little skulking today.
What he's trying to do,
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, if you'll just be charitable for a moment.
I will try.
Okay. He's trying to be inconspicuous,
Is that what that is?
yet not obsequious.
Okay, take it all back.
He's trying to, make sure that the video edition we get out there is palatable, you might say.
And he's done excellent work so far.
Excellent work.
That's right.
We need to thank Mishka, the sound engineer, puts this all together.
Yep.
The gentleman that provided the intro and outro and bumper music, Mr. Scott Van Zandt.
Yep. And thanks to Ken Tamplin as well for his contributions.
Have you watched any of the Singers Now and Then?
Oh my! I love that.
Yeah.
I'm
Did
kind
you
of
watch
addicted.
Michael Jackson?
I didn't watch. I saw David Lee Roth.
Yeah. Anne Hart. Anne Wilson from
Ann
Hart.
Wilson
That's a good one.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
It's great.
Not that I know anything about pop culture,
But yeah, go ahead and check out Ken Tamplin and his Vocal Academy. Great stuff.
yes, that's right.
Hey, we want to hear from you guys. Tell us what you love about the products. If you're buying from Ratio or Hackett, tell us who you are. If you want a shout out, drop a note to Dave at adnauseum.com. Don't forget the V, or to Jeff at adnauseum.com. Also, don't forget the V.
And Jeff, what are we going to deal with next week? What are we serving up? What's going to go on the plate?
It's one of my favorite little vignettes from ancient history, and it's
another vignette.
It's another vignette.
All right.
It's the fasting Alcibiades, kind of the boy wonder,
Right.
of kind of classical,
Late 5th century.
late 5th century, and he got into a big pot of trouble. He was on the verge of kind of leading this naval expedition against Sicily,
Right.
and he did some very naughty things.
He got into a big pot of trouble, a kind of a capeduncula.
He did. He got himself stuck inside a
All right.
capeduncula, and he profaned these sacred mysteries. And even though he was set to lead this expedition, he was run out of town.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a fascinating
Rode out of town on a rail.
peek into political intrigue,
right.
religious intrigue in the 5th century BC.
Looking forward to it. Alcibiades and the profaning of the mysteries.
Yep.
You can also check out mossmethod.com. You want to learn a little bit of Greek?
Yeah, how would I do that?
You go to mossmethod.com
Okay.
and learn a little bit of Greek.
Oh, that's okay.
It can take you from
Neophyte.
to erudite.
Yes.
And Jeff, you have the gustatory parting shot. I love this. Let's hear it.
I do. This comes from Lisi Harrison from a book called Monster High. She writes, "A burrito is a delicious food item that breaks down all social barriers and leads to temporary spiritual enlightenment."
That's great. Thanks for
that
listening.
was a nice dovetail with our topic today. Spiritual
So you're putting a dovetail into the burrito.
Exactly. That's how I like to eat them.
All right.
Thanks for listening.